Hello, good day and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Lugard Sadoh and I teach sociology. I appreciate that you're able to join me, and today we'll be considering an interesting topic, which is the sociology of rape. The sociology of rape. As you are aware, the term sociology is the systematic study of human society. And today, we want to pick up a component that exists and manifests in human society, or that has become a pattern of behavior among some persons in human society, but has the capacity to undermining the peace and the prosperity of human society. And that is the concept of rape. What is rape? Rape has been defined severally from health perspective, from criminal perspective, even from a religious perspective, as a form of sexual abuse. Some people have argued that rape is a form of sexual violence. Some people have argued that rape is a crime against humanity. Some people have argued that rape is an abuse against an individual, and of course it undermines the capacity of the individual for self-expression. What then is rape? Now, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, it defines rape as any form of sexual abuse without the consent of the individual. Now, permit me to say that rape is a crime, it's a violent crime or a sexual crime perpetrated by an offender against an individual without his or her consent that leads to sexual penetration or sexual dehumanization. Now, note the concept I have used in my definition, that rape is a form of sexual abuse or sexual violence perpetrated by the offender without the consent of the individual. It undermines the individual's capacity as an individual for self-existence and self-accountability. When that occurs, the individual is said to have been raped. When an individual is sexually penetrated or feels sexually abused, then that individual has been raped. Now, it is important to note that sociologically it has been established that rape is not just penile penetration or vaginal penetration. Rather, perpetrators of rape can even use their fingers or other parts of their body or even objects outside their body to sexually abuse or violate the victim of rape. So, sociologically, rape is relative across human societies, across religions, and across different parts of the world. And you may ask, how is rape relative? Now, I just give you a little bit I'll give you an example. In some societies of the world, child marriage is approved. And that in itself is a way of giving, if you like, legitimacy to child rape or the actions of pedophiles. In some other societies of the world, rape is justified as a form of conquest, especially during war. And there are several statistics and incidences across the world of violations of women by soldiers during war, during civil unrest, and during protests. So, you find out that the concept of rape is relative. While on paper, all societies of the world condemn rape, yet, one way or the other, they entrench the culture of rape by giving support and legitimacy to perpetrators of rape, to financiers of rape, and, if you like, those who benefit from rape. So, having attempted to define the concept of rape, let us look at the issue of consent. How do you describe consent? Because all definitions of rape insist that rape occurs when there is no consent. So consent is a definition that describes the willingness of the individual to become a part of the activity of the sex initiated by another person. So once an individual is said to be willing and does not object, does not refuse, rather aligns himself or herself to the sexual demand or sexual initiations made by the other, then you will say that consent has occurred. However, we shouldn't be quick to understanding consent from that perspective, because there are different things that can motivate consent and that can give consent. There are individuals who have not reached the age of consent, who are often referred to as minors. Individuals who in themselves cannot be held accountable for their actions or for their decisions. So when such an individual says yes to a sexual activity, when that individual does not have the capacity under law to say yes, that is statutory rape. Hello? That is what? Statutory what? Rape of a child. However, that is not the only definition or the description of the understanding of the concept of consent. People can get consent by different means. Oftentimes, consents are given without any form of intimidation, any form of threat or attachment. But when consent is elicited by an individual through duress, and duress is the use of force and any other means to compel an individual to submit himself or herself to an action, that cannot be said to be consent. And under law, that can be questionable. Again, people use blackmail. An individual may have an information about another person and decides to use that information to get sexual favors or sexual consent from that individual. That in itself does not define consent. That is not consent. So, blackmailing an individual into sexual activity sociologically is not a description of consent. And there are several blackmailing activities that has degenerated into rape. And oftentimes, people who are victims of rape associated with blackmails become, if you like, sexual toys in the hands of their victims. Because at any point in time the individual wants sexual satisfaction, the individual whips up the blackmail. And oftentimes, the individual succumbs to the blackmail and presents himself or herself for sexual activity. That is rape. Another form that needs description in trying to understand the concept of consent is power abuse. A lot of people abuse their powers and privileges. For instance, a teacher abuses his power or being a teacher, a role model to a pupil, a minor, and takes sexual advantage of that individual or group of individuals. That is rape. A boss in the office intimidates a younger colleague, a female or a male, and compels them into sexual relationship, or else they will be fired or transferred to a less prosperous unit or department. And when that individual consents to that sexual demand, that is rape. That is not the definition of consent. It's an abuse of power. And so there are different contemplation and coloration of the idea of consent. So a consent must be free from all forms of ambiguities, all forms of intimidations and threats. Otherwise, you can't say that consent has been given. Having looked at the concept of consent, in discussing the sociology of rape, let us look at the scope of rape. The scope of rape. By scope, I mean the boundaries. Are there some people who are free from rape? Now, for the records, and because of the brief nature of this lecture, I will just mention and state that rape cuts across all divides. In terms of age, everyone across all age groups are susceptible to being raped and can become victims of rape. Whether children, infants, teenagers, young adults, or even the elderly, they can all be raped. And statistics have it that everyone across all age divides have had their own share of rape. So rape does not respect age. Perpetrators of rape actually have certain things that they like. and have certain qualifications and categories, if you like, characteristics of their rape victims. And once you fall into that characteristic, you become a victim or a potential victim. So those who take delight in raping children are threats to children all over the world. Those who take delight in raping old women are threats to elderly women, our grandmothers, our mothers, all over the world. Again, rape has nothing to do with gender. And traditionally, there are just two types of gender. You are either a male or you are a female. And both are susceptible to rape. You know, in those days, whenever you talked about rape, the idea was only females were raped. But we now have clear evidences of both males and females that are raped. For instance, in the United States of America, most of the prison rape that take place, over 70% of them are rapes committed by males against males. Inside the prison. Committed by males against males inside the prison. So, irrespective of your gender, you are susceptible to rape. And that is one reason society must take rape seriously. Because it's a threat to all. Again, let's look at religion. Rape does not respect your religion. You don't tell a rapist, I don't want to be raped because I'm Christian, because I'm Buddhist, because I'm Confucianist, because I'm a Muslim, because I'm an African traditional religious practitioner. No, a rapist has no respect for your tradition. And rape can affect people of all religions. All. From major religions to minor religions. Again, still looking at the scope of rape. Rape affects people of all ethnic group or colorations. I've decided to restrict myself to ethnic and not race. Because ethnic is a better description of the division of people on the basis of certain peculiarities like language, like culture, like ethnography and several others. Unlike race that has to do with your physical look. Now, this is important. However, it is not to say that I am ignoring the existence of race. No, race exists. And for the records, people of all races are also victims of rape and potential victims of rape. Just like people across ethnic coloration. For instance, in the United States of America, whether you are a Caucasian, a white American, or you are an African American, or you are a Mexican American, whatever, or a Chinese American, everyone is a potential victim of rape. And there are statistics of those who have been raped. In my country, in Nigeria, rape has occurred across all ethnic groups and ethnic nationalities. So, whether you are from Edo State, whether you are from Ibadan in Oyo State, whether you are from Zamfara State, or let's come to the ethnic nationality, whether you are Hausa Fulani, whether you are Yoruba, whether you are Igbo, whether you are Esan, whether you are Edo, whether you are Shekiri, whether you are Ijo, whether you are Urobo, whether you are Isoko, whatever ethnic nationality you belong to, rape is a threat against all ethnic groups. So rape affects people of all ethnic coloration, whether you are Indian, Chinese, Japanese, in Asia continent, rape is real. And rape affects both our males and our females, affect our wives and our husbands, affect our daughters and our sons. Rape affects our children. Again, still looking at the scope of rape. Rape is not just a problem that affects people of all age groups or gender or ethnicity or religion. It affects people of all orientation, especially sexual orientation. Wow. Is that not interesting? Everyone is a potential victim of rape. So, in spite of your sexual orientation, whether you are gay, you are lesbian, you are bisexual, you are homosexual, you are heterosexual, whatever orientation you belong to, or people are all over the world, rape is a threat to humans and to humanity. In fact, rape robs us of our humanity. Among animals, for instance, let's go a little bit into science. Among animals, for instance, no animal forcefully imposes himself on his sexual partner. That's what they call courting. Courting. Among the birds, for instance, the native fowls in Africa, we have the native cock and the native hen. The native hen has a way of refusing sexual advances when she doesn't feel like, and the cock has the maturity to walk away, hoping that another opportunity will come. And when the hen is on heat and wants to be, the hen submits to the cock, and the cock mates with the hen. These are animals who have become even more human than humans. Having looked at the scope, and the scope can be wider than this, but for time's sake, let's just limit ourselves to the following that I have mentioned. Let's look at types of rape. Let's look at types of rape. The first type of rape I like us to consider is date rape. Date rape. What is date rape? This is a rape that occurs when people go out on a date, oftentimes a romantic and sometimes a non-romantic date. And the date can be non-romantic because it can be an appointment date, a business date. And so oftentimes it occurs between people who are familiar with themselves. And so there's no suspicion. So a date rape occurs when the victim is made to have sexual relationship with the perpetrator of the crime against his or her will. And oftentimes a rape date occurs when the victim is drugged or the victim is subjected to several alcohol, or oftentimes forced and sometimes killed just to cover up the crime. That's a a rape date. And rape dates are most common among students in our campuses all over the world. It's also present among colleagues and business partners. Oftentimes when a rape date takes place, it's an abuse of humanity. It's an abuse of privilege. It's an abuse of friendship. And rape dates are increasing every day in our world. A second form of rape or type of rape is acquaintance rape. Just close to a rape date is the acquaintance rape, where an individual is acquainted with another and they visit themselves. In visiting themselves, the acquaintance, a male or a female, visits the other just because they have a platonic relationship. But the rapist takes advantage of such visits, such acquaintances, and undermines the sexual privacy of the victim. Sometimes acquaintance rape often leads to group rape or gang rape. The third type of rape I need us to talk about is gang rape. This is about the most predominant form of rape all over the world. From America to France to Europe to Nigeria to Egypt, gang rapes are everywhere. In fact, it was reported in 2013 that during the protest march that took place in Egypt, dozens of thousands of gang rapes took place among the protesters. Is that not abuse of solidarity? Is that not an abuse of comradeship? Is that also not an abuse on integrity? That we all came out to say no to a bad system of governance, and those with whom we went out decided to connive and rape members of the protest group. Gang rape is becoming so predominant. It is disturbing. And why does gang rape increase? It does increase because of the culture of rape that is becoming a norm in human society. When a society says nothing, does nothing about rape, and protects rapists by keeping quiet, by not making appropriate legislations to moderate rapists and moderate the behavior of people in their society, that society is encouraging the culture of rape. And we find that manifesting a lot across most societies of the world. Studies have shown that most adult movies promote rape and the culture of rape. The flooding of pornographic movies and videos all over the world, on our social media handles, on the internet, does nothing but promote the culture of rape. So gang rape, it's a very difficult rape to deal with, but not impossible. It's difficult because beyond the physical perpetrators of the gang rape, there are the gang policy supporters. How do you explain a situation where people are gang raped and the authorities treat it as an isolated case? Until society sees rape as a social problem that requires a sociological intervention, that society is indulging rapists. Actually, is conniving with rapists. Outside gang rape is marital rape, another form of rape. This is a rape that takes place between married couples, where the consent of a marital partner is not sought for and is not given before sexual relationship. Now, this is subject to debate and has been a source of controversy as far as the sociology of rape is concerned over the years. In England, for instance, it was not until recently that a new judgment came that undermined the earlier one, which states that there couldn't be marital rape as long as marriage was still in force. In other words, as long as individuals were married, they have given their consent prior to the sexual experience, and as such, there cannot be need for additional consent. Or rather, the victim can claim that he or she did not give consent. But recently it has been established that marital rape does occur. And when it does occur, it does so because some marriages are abusive marriages, and a lot of people are in abusive relationships. And when people are abused, people are tortured, tormented, and forcefully violated before sexual relationship. That in itself is a form of marital rape. Then, of course, we have prison rape. This is a rape that occurs in the prison system. But it's not just inside the prison that it occurs. It also occurs in law enforcement facilities. For instance, when policemen arrest a female and sexually violates the female, that is prison rape. That is systemic rape. That is institutional rape. And there are instances and evidences of people who are raped by law enforcement agents in the course of enforcing law, ever before being charged to court or being imprisoned. However, let's go back to the major prison rape. This rape occurs between inmates and sometimes between prison staff and inmates. And very recently, this kind of rape also occurs between inmates and outsiders who are approved by prison authorities to have sexual knowledge with victims inside the prison. That's an abuse on humanity. Because prisoners have rights, and they have the right of refusal. To sexually violate them is terrible. And like I noted, over 70% of sexual rape that occurs in the prison occur between men. A man raping another man, especially in advanced countries of the world. That is a typical example of a prison rape. Another type of rape I like to talk about is incestual rape. Incestual rape. This is a rape that occurs among members of the same family. Usually, incest is seen as a taboo. And so because incest is a taboo, it is oftentimes not reported, especially in developing countries, because of the stigma attached to it, and because of what society says about it. However, it doesn't stop the fact that it occurs. Incestual rape can occur between parents and children, among siblings, between nephews and their aunts, between uncles and their nieces, among cousins, among siblings, among step-siblings, between stepfathers and their stepchildren, between grandparents and grandchildren. The list is endless. This in itself describes the nature of incestual rape, when such persons are made to undergo sexual experiences without consent, or they are not reached the age of accountability, or they have become senile like the aged or elderly ones amongst us, who can't even say a yes or a no. That in itself is a description of incestual rape. Lastly, I need us to look at another form of rape, which I refer to as war rape. This is the kind of rape that occurs during war, when soldiers think that it is their rights. In fact, women are conquered commodities. And so, women, girls, men sometimes, and boys are raped by soldiers, violated by soldiers, and after rape sometimes are murdered. In Rwanda, during the Rwanda genocide, it was reported that several war rape cases took place. And what was the reason? It was, as it were, to undermine a particular ethnic group by infiltrating them in order to reduce their dominance. So they didn't just rape women, they raped to make them pregnant. That is humiliation. That is unacceptable, and that is disturbing. Conclusively, while drawing the curtain today, we have attempted a definition of what rape is, and we have admitted that rape is a violation of the sexual space and sexual integrity of the sexual victim or the rape victim by an offender who may use any of his body parts or any other objects to sexually violate an individual without his or her consent. And we have admitted and established that rape continues to trend in our world because of the culture of rape. And we have looked at the scope of rape, where we said and established the fact that rape cuts across all divides of human experiences. And then we look at the types of rape, We have not in any way exhausted all of these, but I hope that this has given you an insight into the sociological problem of rape. When we return, we shall begin from this point where we will look at the causes of rape, the impact or effect of rape, and the sociological theories of rape, and attempt to profess solutions to the problem of rape. Remember, my name is Lugard Sadoh, and I teach sociology. If you have enjoyed this lecture and you would like to continue to receive more of these videos, I need you to please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. Lugard Sadoh PhD is the name on my YouTube channel. Just hit the subscription button and you'll be up and running. And any video I upload subsequently, you will be the first to receive it. Thank you very much for being a wonderful companion today. Have a beautiful day. Hopefully, our world will be free from rapists, and our children, our wives, our sisters, our friends, our sons, our husbands, our daughters, our colleagues, our neighbors will be free from this evil vice that has taken over the world. Thank you and have a beautiful day. God bless you.